I've been using the LG C10 48-inch OLED TV as my main computer display for about half a year now. I use it for both productivity, working away on Word documents, Excel sheets, and casual web browsing throughout the day, and for entertainment, whether that's watching videos, PC gaming, or kicking back on a PS5. And while it's far from perfect and I wouldn't recommend it for everyone, for me, it remains one of the single best displays to do it all. Hi, I'm David, and here are my long-term thoughts on the LG C10 OLED TV as my only computer monitor. To kick it off, this being an OLED panel, let's answer if I have any burn-in. I have over 1700 hours of usage on this display, with most of it being on my PC with a brightness level of 40. And from what I can tell, there's no burn-in when flipping through the different color tests. I do have a dead pixel, but luckily that's far in the corner, so I never notice it. Frankly, I'm quite surprised I haven't experienced burn-in. While I do take some preventative measures like no desktop icons, hidden taskbar, changing desktop background, and a screensaver that kicks in after 5 minutes, and I do still have the burn-in protection features enabled on the TV, like screen shifting and the ABS-L feature. I think it's also important to highlight here that the ABS-L feature that causes brightness fluctuations during static tasks can be very annoying and might be a deal breaker for some. But other than that, I'm not completely babying it when I'm on my PC. I work on static documents and browse idle web pages on my screen for hours on end, and leave tools or reference documents in the same position on a regular basis. And in rare occasions, the screensaver doesn't even kick in because an app or YouTube prevented it, and it idles on a static screen over the lunch hour. To be honest, while I haven't had any issues with burn-in, I say this all with caution. Based on my usage, I wouldn't be surprised if I eventually do get burn-in, but I'm personally comfortable with that if it does happen, as it's worth the risk for me. I think size is the next big hurdle to get over with this 48-inch setup, and it's not for everyone. When using it for productivity, I rarely use applications in full screen, as it's much too big this close to the display, and I instead tile applications across the screen like a multi-monitor setup. But you can learn more about how I do that in another video linked below. The lack of a curve is also noticeable with such a large display this close. It's not terrible, but coming from my ultra-wide monitors with even a slight curve, I do miss having it to make reading stuff on the side a little easier. My experience with PC gaming is the same with productivity. Full screen this close is way too big for me. Personally, my ideal field of view for gaming is either a 27-inch or a 34-inch ultra-wide at arm's length away, so I'll replicate this on the TV by playing games in windowed mode. Or for games with a controller or on my PS5, I'll move back a couple meters so I can appreciate the entire screen. For PC, you can also use full screen custom resolutions instead of windowed mode, but I personally don't like that due to all the black space. I think eye strain is a valid concern when using a large screen this close if you're in a high contrast environment. For example, a bright white web page with a black background, or using a really bright desktop wallpaper, or even poor ambient lighting. While these things also affect regular size monitors, there's less neutral empty space above and below the screen that I find helps with eye strain. I mitigate these issues by using soft pastel wallpaper, making sure my room is well lit, and even using night mode to reduce the blue light in the evenings. Pixel density is still a concern at this size as well. While I've gotten used to the low 92 ppi, I still wish for a smaller 40-inch 4K screen for improved sharpness, text clarity, and reduced color fringing. I know LG Display announced a 42-inch OLED panel, but who knows how long it is before that becomes an actual product. So while I think 48 inches is still a little too big, and if all you care about is PC gaming or productivity, I still think an ultra-wide or super ultra-wide would be a better choice. But I'm also using this for movies, videos, and console gaming, and it's a much better experience for that. The last thing to consider with this setup is that it's a TV, so it's missing some features when compared to a traditional computer monitor. For one, it doesn't have standby mode, so when your PC goes to sleep, the TV will then show this no signal screen for several minutes and then power off completely. So the next time you wake your computer, you'll need to manually power on the TV. Next, if you have a device that you regularly unplug and replug, say a laptop into the TV, this TV likes to reset settings every time you reconnect an HDMI device. forcing you to manually set the PC input setting every time you plug it back in. This isn't an issue with all devices, and you can get around it by keeping a dongle attached, but I can see it being an annoying behavior for specific docking setups or just troubleshooting. Also, being a TV, it has very limited controls with a single button on the display, so I keep the remote control nearby when I need to power off or switch inputs. One neat tip is that you can program long presses to each of the number keys to quickly switch to the different inputs or apps on the TV with a single button. I also found that the default stand wasn't great for computer use, mainly the lack of tilt and how much space it takes up, but moving it on to a monitor arm fixes that problem. And the last thing to note is that glossy screen, and it is reflective, looking like a big black mirror during darker workflows. So depending on your room lighting or windows, you may need to shut some blinds to minimize reflections. But this has never been a deal breaker for me, and I prefer glossy for the clear and vibrant image when watching movies or playing games. So in the end, even though there are a lot of concerns with using this LG C10 OLED as my computer monitor, such as potential burn-in, the large size, and TV limitations, and I'm not even mentioning some of the early adopter troubleshooting that comes with bleeding edge tech with TV firmware and graphics driver updates. For now at least, I still plan on using it as my main display for both productivity and entertainment in this desk setup, because in spite of it all, I still think it's one of the best single displays to do it all, from working on documents to enjoying videos and playing console games. Maybe if I find the room to fit both a dual TV and an ultra-wide monitor setup, I could have the best of both worlds in here, or maybe something better comes out later this year. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this one. You know what to do, and I'll see you in the next video.